Hello everyone and welcome to Devlog number 5. This time I've been working on the color scheme of the game, a soundtrack and also some new mechanics. Starting off with the graphics, the first thing I did was pick a new color scheme. One that looked a little bit less grayish, because in the past the game looked a little bit grim. Then I added a city skyline to get an impression of how the game would feel in a city setting. And I re-added some post-processing effects. The post-processing increases the contrast a little bit and desaturates the colors again. Overall I think the game really begins to feel like a noir game. So before we head into the mechanics, I would like to ask you, if you like this content, then please leave a like, and if you want to stay updated, then please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. After fiddling around with the graphics, I added some new mechanics. The first thing I added was a rope on which a statue hangs. The initial idea was that the rope would keep its fixed length, and if you teleported the statue too far away, it would catapult. This didn't really work. I was using a distance joint in Unity and it didn't behave quite the way I wanted it to. It adjusts its length right now when you teleport the statue farther away, and I think this really confuses the player. Right now you can see a quick playtest we did, and you can see that the player is really confused how to angle the statue and how to get it across the gap. So I think I'm gonna scrap this idea for now. On to the next one. Still in the mindset of these ropes, I noticed something in the earlier playtest. The thing is, the rope seemed cuttable with the hat, so I implemented some change which I had still lying around from an earlier prototype of the game, and I made it so that you can cut the chains with your hat. This way you can have objects that fall on the ground, or maybe have a seesaw that can be released this way. I think it really works in the game. This mechanic adds a lot and feels very natural, so I think I'll keep this one in. The third thing I added was water and floating boxes. This is because of the harbor theme I just released on YouTube. I made the theme and thought it would really fit a harbor setting, so I thought, well, might as well mess around with some water to actually create the water setting in the near future. So I added in a simple wave shape. It's really basic, it's not how the water is going to look, but at least it functions like water and the crates float in it. And I also combined this with the chain element from earlier, that you can cut the chains and then have the boxes drop down into the water, so they will float and you can jump over them. I think this is a really fun and interesting mechanic. There's still a bit of buggy behavior because the player won't quite stand on the boxes can float away under you, so I'll have to look into that in the future. But I think this is a keeper as well. When messing around with these mechanics, I noticed a little bug. When the player threw the hat off screen, it would still cut the chain. So in this example, the player would throw the hat, cut the chain on the first screen, and if the player did not return the hat, it would also cut the chain on the second screen. If the player then arrives in the second screen, then the chain would already be cut, and you'd have no idea of what was going on earlier. So I fixed this by making the hat return to the player if it was off screen. Something else I've been noticing was that the jumping was a bit tight. Sometimes the player would fall off the edge, still having tried to jump, but would be a little bit too late, just because the ground detection is in the middle between the feet, and if you're walking it could feel like you still were able to jump, but you were already falling. So I implemented a little jumping slack. There is 1/10 of a second that the player can still jump when walking off the edge. It's barely noticeable, but it will give the player a little bit of slack when trying to make tight jumps. I think it feels a bit more fair this way. So the last thing I added wasn't really a game mechanic, it's more of an aesthetic thing. I added particle effects to a couple of things. The first thing is the hat. It now has particles when thrown, and also there's a little dust cloud when you jump. I think it really adds to the game feel, and I think I'm going to keep it in, but I might tweak it a little bit more. Now that we've covered all the new mechanics and the graphic improvements, I would like to give you a preview of a new soundtrack while displaying some bloopers of weird behavior, which I'm going to look into in the near future. And before you leave, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. For now, enjoy, and I hope to see you in the next video.